Chapter 151. Mia Kyle had always been lively. After hearing Karen Daly's words, she jumped up and ran upstairs. While running, she said, "Sister-in-law, go back to your room. If you don't go back, my brother will blame me for pestering you. He might take revenge another day." Mia Kyle felt that her sister-in-law was right. If she liked someone, she should chase him boldly. Why did she think so much? No matter how much she thought about it, it was impossible for the annoying man, Neil Brown, to know. She wanted to see him and tell him personally that she liked him, wanted to be his bride, and wanted to be with him for the rest of her life. Mia Kyle went back to her room and changed into a set of beautiful clothes. She sent a message to Neil Brown saying, "I'm going to the gate of Star Playland to wait for you now. You must come to see me. If you don't come, I won't leave. I'll do what I said. Don't doubt me." After sending the message, Mia Kyle walked down the stairs. After running for nearly half an hour, she ran out of the villa area of Seaview Bay and stopped a cab to send her to Star Playland. This year-end vacation. Oh no, it was already 12 o'clock at night. Now it should be the first day of the new year. It was during last year's vacation, where Neil Brown brought her to the place to hang out all the time. He was the commander in charge of the whole military region of Chatterton Town. He had a lot of responsibilities, but he was willing to accompany a little girl to play merry-go-round and frog jumping. As long as she wanted to play, no matter how childish it was, he would accompany her without saying anything. He often patted her and said to her, "Mia is so cute. It's almost impossible to reject you." At that time, she was so happy and capricious because she knew that no matter how unreasonable her request was, he would not refuse her. The weather forecast said that there would be light rain today, the cold air would go south, and Chatterton Town would be cold for a few days. She knew that the temperature would drop, but Mia Kyle didn't wear too much. She had to dress herself up so that Neil Brown couldn't resist her. She wanted him to know that she was no longer the childish little girl. She had grown up and became more beautiful. However, after getting off the car, Mia Kyle regretted a little. Damn it, how stupid I was. Why did I ask to meet him in the evening? Meeting him tomorrow is okay. He won't run away overnight. It was already 2 o'clock in the morning. The playground had long been closed, and there were no pedestrians on the road. The lamp closest to her was probably going to be broken. The light kept blinking, bringing up an eerie vibe, which made Mia Kyle feel cold. Not only that, but there was also cold wind with drizzles. It was really cold. However, at the thought that she would see Neil Brown soon, Mia Kyle was excited again. She kept walking around to keep warm. While running, she looked at her mobile phone, afraid of missing a phone call from Neil Brown. She didn't know how long she had walked around in circles. She stopped and rested for a while. She looked around and found no trace of him, but she didn't want to give up easily. She always believed that Neil Brown would definitely come to see her. After a little recovery, she began to run around again. She said that if he didn't come, she wouldn't leave. She would do what she said. She was so stubborn. However, as time went by, the sky was getting brighter and brighter. Mia Kyle's heart was somewhat uncertain. She began to feel a little sad because if he wanted to come, he would have been here long ago. Did he hate to see her so much? Thinking of this, Mia Kyle's strength seemed to be drained in an instant. She squatted on the ground lifelessly. Mia Kyle bit her pink lips and dialed Neil Brown's number again. After a few rings, the line was connected. Neil Brown's voice came from the phone receiver. "Where are you?" Hearing his voice, Mia Kyle's blood was revived in an instant. She said excitedly, "I am at the gate of Star Playland. Are you here?" Neil Brown said, "Go home." Mia Kyle stamped her foot in a hurry and said angrily, "I said I won't leave if you don't show up. Do you think I'm kidding you?" Neil Brown snorted and said, "Then stay there. It's such a cold day. If you catch a cold, you deserve it." Mia Kyle was so angry that she gritted her teeth and said, "Neil Brown, you are a man after all. Don't you know how to show mercy to women?" Neil Brown said, "I don't." Mia Kyle. Neil Brown said, "Go home quickly." Mia Kyle thought for a while. She was so fierce. Maybe that's why he didn't know how to be kind to women. At this time, maybe she should try to be feminine. So she sniffed, squeezed out 2 drops of tears and said in a crying voice, "Neil Brown." Before she could finish, Neil Brown hung up the phone. Hearing the beeping sound from the phone in her hand, Mia Kyle was so angry that she smashed the phone. What the fuck? How could there be such an annoying man in this world? Seeing such an invincible, beautiful girl alone in the cold wind, he was not just unkind to her, but also mercilessly hang up on her call. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. She raised her foot and stepped hard on the mobile phone on the ground, as if she regarded the mobile phone as the annoying man who made her angry. "Neil Brown, you bastard, you don't want to see me, do you? You want me to go home, don't you?" Mia Kyle shouted while stepping on the ground. "Humph, I just don't want to go home. Come out if you have the audacity." This was not enough. Mia Kyle ran again and shouted while running, "Neil Brown, you coward, if you don't come to see me, I'll crush you to death and crush you to pieces." In the distance, Neil Brown watched Mia Kyle being crazy, smoking one cigarette after another. He accompanied her by standing at the gate of the amusement park for the whole night. After returning home, Mia Kyle had a cold. She cursed the culprit in her heart while she sneezed. "Idiot, you'd better wait for me. You'd better not let me see you again, or I'll peel your skin, drink your blood, and eat your flesh. Mia, it's very uncomfortable, isn't it? Karen Daly looked at Mia Kyle gnashing her teeth and felt that she had a cold. I feel very uncomfortable. I'm so full of hatred. Thinking of a hateful man, Mia Kyle was so angry that she jumped out again. If it weren't for the fact that she couldn't enter the military area, she would not need to be angry in silence. She would definitely rush into his camp and blow up his base camp. Busy with military affairs, always. If she shot a missile over and blew up his nest, let's see what he can be busy about. Don't be angry, drink the medicine first, or you will be the one suffering. Seeing Mia Kyle's angry look, Karen Daly felt funny. Thank you, sister-in-law. Although she was angry, she would not get into trouble with her own body. She had to recover as soon as possible, and then she will find that annoying man to get even with him. Bastard. Chapter 152. After drinking the medicine, Karen Daly quickly handed candy to her and said, Eat it quickly, Mia. Don't be bitter about it. Mia Kyle took a bite of the candy and said in a subtle tone, Sister-in-law, why are you so considerate? My brother, that silly guy, has been so lucky to marry such a gentle and considerate wife like you. Your mouth can be so sweet with just a piece of candy. Karen Daly smiled and took back the bowl, and then touched Mia Kyle's head. My mouth has always been sweet. After that, Mia Kyle held Karen Daly and touched her face. Sister-in-law, since there is nothing to do, and my brother is busy in the study room, why don't you accompany me here and chat with me? Let's talk about my brother. What does your brother have gossip about? Karen Daly was still very interested in this topic. It was impossible to learn about Kevin's past from himself, so it was not bad to hear it from Mia Kyle. However, Karen Daly, who had always been smart, forgot that Mia Kyle could definitely shoot all sorts of nonsense off from her mouth. Mia Kyle had suffered a lot of bullying by Kevin Kyle. If Mia Kyle were to talk about her brother's past, she would definitely be able to talk about it for the rest of the day. My brother has a lot of gossip about him. Mia Kyle looked up at the door to make sure that her brother didn't eavesdrop outside the door. She said mysteriously, It depends on which one you would like to listen to. Anyone will be fine. Karen Daly said with a smile. There were also some mischievous thoughts in Karen Daly's heart. Usually, Kevin Kyle always pretended to be cold and distant. If she could know some of his previous embarrassing moments, she could use them to tease him in the future. Let me tell you something. Before I knew that he got married, I thought he liked men. Mia Kyle winked and said. Her appearance was so adorable. Karen Daly was amused by her and couldn't stop laughing. Mia, why do you think so? My brother used to have a girlfriend, but the woman dumped him. By the way, the woman's family name seems to be Daly too. Speaking of this, Mia Kyle appeared happy. Her brother had always been loved by many in the school. No matter where he went, there were countless people who wanted to be his friends, but he was abandoned by a girl. Why did she dump him? At the mention of his ex-girlfriend's surname, Karen Daly immediately thought of the thing between Kevin Kyle and Christine Daly. At that time, Kevin Kyle also told her the same thing. If Christine Daly didn't dump Kevin Kyle at that time, then what would happen now? It was possible that Karen Daly had married Charlie and Christine Daly had married Kevin Kyle. And the person who had a conflict with the Kyle family here today would be Christine Daly. Fortunately, Christine Daly chose to let go of Kevin Kyle and came back to Charlie. Luckily, in the end, Kevin Kyle belonged to her rather than Christine Daly. Well, you know, my brother could be like a piece of wood, and he was as cold as an iceberg. He must be stupid. He did not know how to make his girlfriend happy, so naturally, he was dumped. As soon as Mia Kyle started talking, she couldn't stop. Without giving Karen Daly a chance to interrupt, Mia Kyle continued, Sister-in-law, when my brother was with you, was he also like a piece of wood? Was it boring for you to be with him? Would he take the initiative to chat with you? No, in fact, your brother is a quality man. Karen Daly naturally stood up for her husband. Except that Kevin Kyle was cold-tempered and didn't like to talk. He was very good in other aspects. At least, he was very considerate whenever he should be considerate to her. As for what Mia Kyle said, it was even more impossible for Kevin Kyle to fall in love with men. That's why I said that my brother was lucky. Mia, you just took the medicine. Sleep for a while. Everything will be fine when you wake up. Karen Daly pulled the quilt to cover Mia Kyle properly, patted her, and watched her fall asleep. In the past, she had never taken care of others so carefully. Perhaps it was because Mia Kyle was too adorable, or perhaps it was because Mia Kyle was Kevin Kyle's sister. As a sister-in-law, she felt that she should take care of her. However, no matter what it was, Karen Daly had put in a lot of effort to take care of Mia Kyle, who was sick, and it could be regarded as a way to spare everyone else some worries. In a hospital in Beaufort City. Christine Daly had been lying in the hospital for a few days. Today was the day for her to remove her bandage. Christine Daly sat quietly on the bed, and the two nurses stood at the bedside and carefully helped her remove the bandage over her head. A round of bandage was removed, and Christine Daly was still sitting there. Her eyes were cold, and no single expression could be seen. Miss Daly, the wound has already healed. If we use some better medicine from now on, there shouldn't be much scarring. Hearing the nurse's voice, Christine Daly smiled gently and said, Could you please give me a mirror so I could look at my face? Miss Daly, you'd better not look at it now. You'd better wait a few days when the wound would be better. The scars on Christine Daly's face looked like centipedes. The nurse was a little worried that she would not be able to face reality. Women had always wanted to be beautiful. Only a few women could accept the fact that their faces were disfigured like this. Sorry to trouble you, but please give me a mirror, Christine Daly said. Christine Daly insisted on seeing it, so it was inappropriate for the nurse to persuade her again, so she found a mirror for her. When Christine Daly saw the woman with scars all over her face in the mirror, she still didn't show any expression on her face. But her hands at the side of her body clenched into fists, and her nails sank deeply into her palms. Miss Daly, are you okay? The nurse asked carefully. I'm fine, thank you. Christine Daly raised her lips and smiled at the ferocious face in the mirror. The nurse took back the mirror and said, Please go through the discharge form and you can leave the hospital. I've already completed the discharge form. Christine Daly was about to say yes when a frivolous male voice suddenly came in. She looked up and saw Mr. Willis appear at the door of the ward. These are my personal affairs. I don't need your help. Christine Daly glanced at him and said coldly, Don't think too much. I don't mean anything to you. He waved to the nurse to go out and said, You will marry me sooner or later. I just want to see the wounds of my future wife. If we are going to live together in the future, I will need to get used to it in advance so I won't be scared. Christine Daly looked at him coldly. Do you want to change your mind? Of course not. Anyway, I just need to marry you, not sleep with you. It doesn't matter to me what you look like, Mr. Willis said as he reached out to help her up. Christine Daly grabbed his hand and whispered, I have paid such a heavy price, and I have another request to make. You have to agree. What request? Tell me, if I'm in a good mood, I may agree with it. Mr. Willis slightly curled his lips and looked at her quietly. Chapter 153. Looking at the smile in Mr. Willis's eyes, Christine Daly did not speak anymore. Her gaze went from being fierce and intimidating to being expressionless again. She was too stupid and naive. After experiencing so many things, she still thought that someone would help her and that she could rely on a man to complete what she wanted to accomplish. Mr. Willis and her are only working with each other for mutual benefits. It could be said that they had no affection at all. Now that she had given him everything that the Gook family should have given him, she was no longer useful to him. How could he help her? He came to her today just for a show. He wanted to see how serious her injury was and if she could survive. If she was so depressed, it would mean that he wanted to see the final result. Because if that was the case, he could completely take back the 20% part of the deal that belonged to her. Not speaking, do you want to withdraw your ideas? Mr. Willis put his hand in his pocket and asked slowly. Since you're so free, I'm sorry to trouble you, but could you send me home? Christine Daly asked calmly. Mr. Willis chuckled and said, Go home? Which one? Christine Daly was stunned when she got out of bed. She looked up at him again and asked, What do you mean? Mr. Willis took 2 steps back and observed Christine Daly seriously. Then he said slowly, Miss Christine Daly, you may not know that during your half-month in the hospital, there has been a huge change outside. What kind of change? Christine Daly asked in a hurry. Her cold expression was observed by Mr. Willis at this moment. In fact, she still cares about everything, even though she didn't express it. He added, the Gook family had been sealed up, and several core leaders of the Gook family have been arrested. As for your father, he escaped quickly. I don't know where he go, and even the police can't found him. Huffa. Christine Daly smiled coldly. Charlie, the beast's patron, had fallen, which was really a great joy. However, it was a pity that she didn't see Charlie's miserable situation and the Gook family being arrested with her own eyes. Mr. Willis added, Anyway, I have promised to marry you. You don't have a place to live, and I can take you back to my place. Christine Daly asked, Was the Daly household sealed up too? Mr. Willis said, That's not true. Maybe they have not found any evidence of Samuel Daly's real involvement in the crime yet, but he felt guilty and ran away first. Maybe there isn't much to search for anyway. Since my house is still available, I don't need to go back with you. If you're willing, please send me back to my place. Christine Daly got up and walked out. A cold light suddenly appeared in Mr. Willis's eyes as he looked at her back. This seemingly weak woman's willpower was much stronger than her appearance. She had experienced so many things, and her face had been disfigured. How could she be so calm? It seemed that he couldn't look down on her, and he couldn't be soft on her. He couldn't leave any future troubles for himself. Thinking of this, Mr. Willis quickly followed up. He helped Christine Daly up courteously and said, You have been lying on the bed for so long. Don't go too fast. If you faint, you have to continue to stay in the hospital. Christine Daly shook off her hand and said coldly, You and I both know what we want. Don't act with me. I just want to be nice to you. I mean no harm. He smiled. I don't need it. Christine Daly ignored him and strode out. Then Mr. Willis drove Christine Daly back to her place. When she got off the car, he stopped her and said, Miss Daly, I still have some things to give you. Christine Daly stopped walking and turned back. What is it? I'm worried that you don't sleep well, so I got a bottle of sleeping pills, especially through my contacts. Mr. Willis took out a white bottle without any labels and shook it outside the window. Christine Daly raised her eyebrows and said, "It's not too late for me to be happy about the fall of the Gook family, so how can I not fall asleep?" "You really don't need it?" Mr. Willis smiled and said, "The dosage here is enough for a person to sleep to death and never wake up. I gave you so much at one time just for you to have a good sleep. Don't eat it all at once, and don't let me get charged with murder." "Murder?" Christine Daly's eyes lit up. She reached out to take the bottle and said, "Then, thank you for this." Mr. Willis said, "You and I will be husband and wife soon. You don't have to be so courteous." After that, he waved his hands and drove away. Christine Daly saw Mr. Menether Willis driving away, and then turned back to enter her house. After returning to her house, Christine Daly noticed that it was swept clean. All valuable things were sold by Samuel Daly, and there were no helpers around. It seemed that Samuel Daly knew about the fall of the Gook family, and he couldn't get rid of the relationship, so he was ready to escape. She went back to her room, which was in a mess. There was blood on the ground that had dried up, which proved that no one had cleaned up after she went to the hospital. She sat in front of the dresser and looked carefully at herself in the mirror again. This face used to be so beautiful, and she even felt that she would never lose to Karen Daly in terms of appearance. Now she was unrecognizable. The scars, big and small, looked like small worms, which was disgusting. "Ah!" she screamed hysterically, holding her head in her arms. After venting for a while, she gradually calmed down. She stretched out her fingers and stroked every scar gently. Every time she touched a wound, the hatred in her eyes became deeper. Charlie, Samuel Daly, Karen Daly. The reason why she was here today was all caused by these people. If Karen Daly did not exist, Charlie would not compare her with Karen Daly, and it was even more impossible for him to do these unspeakable things to her. Thinking of this, she stopped touching the scars and turned her head to look at the window. The weather in Beaufort City had always been like this. It was almost mid-month after the new year, and the weather was still so cold. It seemed that a new round of heavy snow was about to start. The heavy snowfall will then melt in a few weeks. Everything new would start again. She also wanted to start her life again. She took out her mobile phone and searched for news about the Gook family. As expected, a large number of people were searched. The most eye-catching thing was that the Gook family's commercial crimes had been investigated and several core leaders had been arrested. As for Charlie, if there was no news about him, it proved that he was fine. He was not involved in the case of the Gook family's crime. Can't I do anything if he's not involved? Christine Daly thought. She looked at herself in the mirror again, smiled and said, "Charlie, if you gave me a hard time, how can I let you live comfortably?" Chapter 154. Half a month seemed to have passed in the blink of an eye. In the past few days, the temperature in Chatterton town had risen, and the sun was shining bright every day, which lifted people's spirits. After lunch, Kevin Kyle's mother invited Karen Daly and Mia Kyle to sit in the garden, bask in the sun, and chat. Kevin Kyle's mother patted Karen Daly's hand and said, "Karen, we will go back to the United States tomorrow. From now on, you and Matthew will live in Chatterton town. You must get along well with each other." "Mom, you should say these to my brother. If the two of them quarrel, it must be because of him who doesn't know how to make Karen happy." Mia Kyle chimed in and said, "I wanted to tell him, but do you think I have time to tell him?" A few days after the new year, he had been busy with work. Every day, he goes out early and comes back late. I can't even see his shadow. How can I find a chance to tell him? Speaking of her son, Kevin Kyle's mother was full of complaints. She had always known that her son was a workaholic. He would be occupied with work 24/7. Now that he had gotten married, it seemed that nothing had changed. However, she knew that it was not entirely Kevin Kyle's fault. It was because of her. If her body had not gotten weaker, Kevin Kyle's father would not have handed over all the work to Kevin Kyle so early. "You can't put pressure on sister-in-law." Mia Kyle pouted her lips and looked at Karen Daly, who lowered her head and said nothing. "Karen, don't you think so?" "Sorry, what?" Karen Daly asked in confusion. "Karen, did he really make you unhappy?" Seeing Karen Daly's absent-minded look, Mia Kyle instinctively felt that her brother had made her sister-in-law angry. "We're fine," Karen Daly replied weakly. She didn't know what had happened to her. She had been sleepy for the past few days. Kevin Kyle will leave work very early in the morning and will only get up hours later. When he's not back yet, she would go to bed early. But she still felt sleepy after sleeping so much every day. "Karen, are you not feeling well? Or did Matthew make you unhappy?" Kevin Kyle's mother also noticed that Karen Daly was different from the past, and she was not in the mood. "I'm not unwell," Karen Daly said. But when she saw the skeptical look in Kevin Kyle's mother's eyes, she added, so that she would not worry, "Maybe I didn't sleep well last night. I'm a little sleepy today." She didn't want Kevin Kyle's mother to worry about her at all, but through the ears of his mother and Mia Kyle, it was perceived with a completely different meaning. Kevin Kyle's mother smiled and said softly, "Since you're tired, go back to your room and sleep for a while. You won't have to get up until you're fully charged." Karen Daly was so sleepy that she couldn't open her eyes, and she didn't pay attention to the implicit meaning behind her words. She nodded and said, "Then I'll go." Karen Daly tried to beat her sleepiness, but it was impossible. She had to rest well before she could chat with Kevin Kyle's mother and Mia Kyle. After getting along for nearly a month, Karen Daly deeply felt the care and love of the parents of the Kyle family, especially Kevin Kyle's mother. She was like her own mother, always smiling kindly at her, which was so gentle that people wanted to be in her embrace. It was probably a blessing for a woman to have such a caring mother-in-law. It must be so rare. After the Gook family was investigated, the news that several core leaders had been taken in was quickly spread throughout the major sites, and it became the headlines for weeks. Over the new year, Karen Daly was not in the mood to pay attention to the Daly family or the Gook family, so she naturally ignored the news. However, this news was too shocking. As soon as Karen Daly returned to her room, the news from the Gook family's search popped up on her mobile phone. After reading, Karen Daly had an unspeakable feeling in her heart. There was no pleasant satisfaction as expected after her revenge. Instead, she felt a mixture of emotions. Life was so uncertain that it could push a person to the peak in a minute, and then it could throw a person to the lowest point in a minute. She reminisced the time when the Gook family was in such a great heyday. The young master of the Gook family, Charlie, was very eye-catching, but now he was doomed. To be able to defeat the Gook family in such a short period of time, Mr. Wireless must be much more powerful than she had imagined. Such a person, she had to stay away from him in the future, and should not have anything to do with him. As for Samuel Daly, it was said that he had run away. How could that beast run away? While she was thinking, Kevin Kyle called her. She picked up the call and heard Kevin Kyle's magnetic voice. "What are you doing?" "I'm missing you." Karen Daly smiled and said. Sure enough, after hearing this answer, the man on the other end of the phone kept silent again. She added, "Don't you want me to miss you?" Kevin Kyle replied, "No." Karen Daly asked, "What's that?" Kevin Kyle didn't say anything. Karen Daly said, "Well, it's fine if you don't want to say it. I'm going to sleep now, so I won't talk to you anymore." In fact, she really wanted to chat with him and wanted to hear his voice, but she was too sleepy. Kevin Kyle suddenly said, "Karen, I'm not angry with you." Hearing his helpless voice, Karen Daly couldn't resist smiling and said, "The elders are going back to the United States tomorrow. Do I need to prepare anything else?" Kevin Kyle said, "No need." Karen Daly sighed. "We've been together for nearly a month, and they're going back. Suddenly, I feel empty in my heart. I'm so reluctant to say goodbye. You still have me, but the feeling is different." "What's the difference?" Karen Daly rested her head on the pillow and said softly, "Because you are my husband. You are unique to me. It must be different." "Well, I see." His answer was such short and annoying. If he was by her side, Karen Daly would definitely pounce on him and bite him hard. "Then I'll hang up." Before he could answer, she hung up on the call, laid in bed, closed her eyes, and was about to sleep. The phone beside her rang again. Karen Daly answered. "Is there anything else?" "Karen, have you seen the news of the fall of the Gook family? It's really a great joy." Faye Reed's voice came from the phone. "Oh," Karen Daly answered weakly. "It's a good thing that the Gook family is overthrown." "Why do I hear that your tone is a little sad?" Faye Reed asked discontentedly. "I was just about to fall asleep, but I was woken up by you. I think it's fair enough that I didn't scold you, but how can I be happy?" Karen Daly had been woken up twice at this point. She was getting a little agitated. "Well, it's not the right time for me to call. But tell me, when will you come to work?" "Tomorrow afternoon." After sending off the Kyle family tomorrow, she would go to work. Since she would be occupied with work, then maybe she wouldn't feel so groggy anymore. Chapter 155. After nightfall, Karen Daly went to bed early again. She had been sleeping the whole afternoon. She would still be sleeping if not for Mia, who woke her up for dinner. She still felt lethargic after dinner, so she went back to her room to sleep. She didn't know how long she had been sleeping before she was awakened by the sound of the opening door. She could hear Kevin Kyle tiptoeing into the room silently. She was really deep in slumber, but also wanted to talk to him. But she couldn't muster the strength to sit up and do that. She felt that he was just beside her, staring at her with a longing gaze. He stared at her for a long time before turning around to go to the bathroom. After that, Karen Daly was still half asleep until she heard him walking out of the bathroom. She raised her head and asked, "You're busy working until late night again?" "Yes." He lied down by her side. He reached out to pull her into his arms and lowered his head to kiss her. "I'm so sleepy." Karen Daly did not avoid that, but did not reciprocate too. "Are you ill?" When he called her in the afternoon, she was already sleeping a lot. "Maybe it's because of the weather. This kind of weather is the most annoying," Karen Daly muttered. "Then go to sleep." He kissed her forehead again and did not bother her anymore. He would never force her to do anything she didn't want to do. Karen Daly shifted herself in his arms and fell asleep again immediately after her eyelids were shut. It felt safe to be with him, even when sleeping. Looking at her calm face, Kevin Kyle found it hard to fall asleep. Whenever he worked late at night, there was someone waiting for him when he got home. It was really a good feeling. The next day, Karen Daly was finally awake after sleeping for a long time. When she opened her eyes, she saw Kevin Kyle reading the newspaper by the window. "You're awake." His voice was clear. Yes. She nodded. Go back to sleep if you're still sleepy. I'll send the elders and Mia to the airport. How could I do that? Karen Daly immediately got up and went to the bathroom to wash up. When the elders of the Kyle family left this time, it was going to be a while before they could meet again. How could she not send them off? When they went downstairs, the elders were already waiting for them to have breakfast together. After breakfast, Grandpa Kyle had a few words with Kevin Kyle and Karen Daly. He was hoping they could have a child soon so that he could have the fortune of holding his great-grandson in his hands. After Grandpa Kyle left, Kevin Kyle's mother told them that they do not need to rush into giving birth. They should just let nature take its course. When the family arrived at the airport, Mia hugged Karen Daly and said, Karen, I am just dropping by the school to register for the semester. It won't be long until I return to Chatterton Town for filming. Try not to miss me too much. Okay, then we'll wait for you to come back. Karen Daly smiled and said, Brother, be nice to my sister-in-law. If you dare to bully her, be prepared to face my wrath. Mia said this while swinging her fists in front of Kevin Kyle. Don't let Grandpa and your parents worry about you once you are back. You have to study hard. Don't spend too much time filming, Kevin Kyle said with a serious face. It's none of your business. Mia pouted with discontentment. All right, stop arguing, Kevin Kyle's mother said with a smile. Matthew, no matter how busy you are at work, you should remember that you are now somebody's husband. Don't always leave Karen alone. Okay, Kevin Kyle nodded. Grandpa Kyle said, when you are done with your work, bring Karen back to us from time to time. As for the wedding, you don't have to worry about it. We will take care of it for you. Grandpa, about this? It's settled then? Grandpa Kyle waved his hand to stop Kevin Kyle and said, we should check in now. You should also go back. Kevin Kyle could not respond. He wanted to prepare the wedding by himself. Karen Daly saw through his worries, so she secretly held his hand and smiled at him. It was in fact a good sign that the elders were willing to help them with the wedding. It was a sign that they had completely accepted her as one of their family members. After watching them pass through the security check at the customs, Kevin Kyle took Karen Daly's hand and left. Kevin Kyle asked, where do you want to go now? Karen Daly said, take me to the studio. Okay. Kevin Kyle nodded and asked the driver to send her to the studio first. What are you going to do today? Karen Daly asked again. Rovia's headquarters in the country is moving to Chatterton Town. It's going to get busier, Kevin Kyle said. Remember to have your meals no matter how busy you are, Karen Daly said. You too? He rubbed her head. Yes, I will. Karen Daly nodded with a smile. She sunk into his arms and felt sleepy again. Before long, she fell asleep again as the car moved along. Kevin Kyle thought, it was her who took care of my family these days. She must be very tired. That was all he thought. He couldn't imagine other possibilities because he was quite inexperienced in this aspect. More than an hour later, Karen Daly arrived at the studio. One of the two designers at the studio had been on a pregnancy leave for some time. Faye Reed, on the other hand, had been busy handling some urgent jobs. She had been wishing that Karen Daly was there to help her. Seeing her, Faye Reed was extremely happy. Thank heavens, I've been waiting all day and all night. Finally you appear. Karen Daly yawned and said lazily, my lady boss, you sound like you're going to fire me. But you're more like the boss, really. How could I fire you? Faye Reed said as she showed Karen Daly the new job details. The client's requests are all on it. Please take a closer look. Okay, I'll give it a look later. You can go back to work. Karen Daly yawned again as she finished her sentence. Hey Karen, just how good is your man in bed? What do you mean? Look at yourself. He must have done you good. You look tired even though you just came in. We didn't do anything. Karen Daly recalled about yesterday night when she rejected Kevin Kyle's request to be intimate. Faye, would it be disappointing for a man to be rejected by his partner when he wants it? Why did you reject? Answer my question, please. Faye Reed thought for a moment and said, I'm not a man. I wouldn't know how will they feel. But according to what I read, it will be pretty disappointing for the man when it comes to being rejected for that. As she was speaking, Faye Reed was inches in front of Karen Daly. Karen, why did you reject him? Miss Reed, don't be so nosy, or else someday Sebastian Spencer will get rid of you. He does not have the guts to do that. Besides, he will be transferred to Chatterton Town next month. By then, we can be together every day. Congratulations. You too, but you really do look so sleepy. If it's not because of your partner, is it possible that you are pregnant? Pregnant? Karen Daly contemplated this possibility. She had never been so sleepy before. The past few days were really unusual, and Faye Reed's words made Karen Daly suddenly remembered that it had been a while since her last period. It usually came regularly. However, she'd better not jump to conclusions. If her issue was due to health-related concerns, then she would be so disappointed.